question about witnessing to Mormons. I have been talking to our local LDS missionary. His name's Harrison. Let's see, well over a week ago now, he wrote to me, and he was in at his apartment because he had bronchitis, and he asked if I was willing to answer some questions. So he's asked me about the Trinity, about salvation, all kinds of different questions, really good questions. Well, due to all the changes with missionary service, he is going home today. He wasn't supposed to go home till July, but he's being sent home early. Yeah. So we're still in touch with him. He called me this morning thanking us for our family's love for him and stuff like that. But I'm wondering your tips on witnessing to a now returned Mormon missionary as I continue to keep in touch with him.
Yeah, I don't know what the numbers are right now. There's been a lot of changes, but back in the day, 60 to 65% of Mormon missionaries, when they went home, became inactive for about 6 months after they got back because they were simply burned out. They were just tired. It is a difficult life. The missionaries are strongly discouraged from developing relationships with people, even with other Mormons, really. And so, especially at that particular age in life, it's tough. It's a real hard thing that they're doing. And today, so many Mormons have such a subjective perspective that the church is changing. And it just must be really, really, really difficult. And I am obviously encouraged when any of these young men have questions. And it seems to me that the best time for those conversations taking place is when they're off their missions. I mean, the conversation on the mission can start the process, but they are so surrounded by Mormonism. They're almost never alone. And so having time to decompress and to actually even give consideration to what they've heard from someone is very difficult while on the mission. In most instances, questions that develop on the mission end up having fruit and fruition after the mission is over. And so if you can maintain that kind of an open door, then obviously once they're no longer on the mission, then they can read literature, they can read books, they can engage in meaningful conversation. And so if you can keep the door open, you don't have to provide just quote unquote anti-Mormon literature and materials.
Right.
I, for example, years ago, sent someone a copy of The Holiness of God by R.C. Sproul. And I chose that book especially because of the fact, well, first of all, when I read it, I couldn't put it down. I read it in one sitting. I was up till 1:30 in the morning, something like that, reading that book because I just could not put it down. It was that good. And the section on the madness of Luther in regards to the holiness of God, I would think, especially in dealing with Mormons, would be one of the most differentiating aspects of who God really is. Because if God's an exalted man, then the whole concept of holiness that is central to who the true God of Scripture is completely foreign. There's no corresponding aspect within Mormonism of the holiness of God, because the holiness of God in Scripture is He is completely other, and the main message of an understood Mormon theology is He is completely me. And so you can't get any more different than that. And so answering those questions, great, but maybe opening up some other areas with literature like that would be a really good direction to go as well. Now, obviously, if you've been talking with him, maybe you've already discovered whether he's your whether he's a strong conservative style Mormon or whether he's more of the modern emotionally oriented subjective style Mormon, a mixture of the two.
Yeah.
Hard to say. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
He's more, he believes in exaltation, that sort of stuff. He knows his stuff. Like, he knows what the King Follow Discourse is, which I've met a missionary who didn't.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I like that. But he wants to ask the questions, and he wants me to explain everything. Because he knows that we're Reformed Baptist.
Right.
So he's like, so what does that mean? Like, if you had to nail down your core beliefs, what would those be? And then he asked me, he's like, okay, I want to know what happens to the following person, the average elect person, the average non-elect person, and gave me this list. And he's like, I want everything from the start to the end and everything in between.
Yeah.
So he definitely wants me to give him the information. We were talking about the canon of scripture for a while. I sent him part of an article that you wrote. We watched some of your videos that you did with Wretched Radio on the reliability of the New Testament. We watched that when they came over.
I can almost guarantee you there's a Mormon listener right now. Thankfully, I didn't mention where you're from because I know where you're from and I'm not going to mention it. But there's a Mormon listener right now calling their local missions district, the Arizona State Mission or whatever, here in Arizona. And they're going, okay, here's the missionary's name. And we need to send the shock troops in because this is bad. This is not a good situation. I can just see it now. And okay. Maybe they'll forget that you gave his name because he's doomed now, one way or the other. But that sounds like a real good situation. Eventually, someone gets to the point where they're seeing enough to where they're starting to realize this would require a major change on my part, and that can be extremely frightening and can result in a sudden cutting off of all contact. There's nothing you can do about that. You have to trust the Lord in that situation. You provide the best answers that you possibly can, and then you trust the Lord to do with that situation what he will. But the fact that he's asking, I mean, obviously, a lot of the questions he's asking are answered in Letters to a Mormon Elder and Is a Mormon My Brother. Those obviously would be books that, Letters to a Mormon Elder is more conversational, but Is a Mormon My Brother it goes very in depth into LDS theology and citations, stuff like that. At the very least, he looks at it and goes, these folks are really trying to represent us as accurately as possible, so I probably should listen to what they're having to say. But both those books would be helpful. But like I said, along with stuff like the holiness of God and things like that would communicate something that's not just within the context of I need to be defensive about this because I already have beliefs in this area and this is challenging me. That kind of thing could be really useful as well.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much. I'll write to you later, or I'll have my dad write to you later, because friends near where this missionary is going, but I don't want to mention that because I don't want to cause trouble.
That would probably be good. That'd probably be good. Okay, I'll hear I'll look forward to that.
Okay, thank you.